Hello GameMakers, this is GameMaker Rob, and in today's episode we have a simple inventory using a DS list. This was voted for and suggested by my patrons. Thank you so much, guys. We can pick up items, drop them. We have a simple and easy way to make different things happen depending on what item we use. We can also show and hide the inventory as well. If you want to become a patron, the link is in the description below. Apart from that, let's get started. Okay, so I have a player object just for moving around. Each item you can see is actually just one object. I'm just using one object with one sprite, and each index of the sprites is a different image. If you prefer to have one object per item, you could do that and just have a parent object for all the items. Personally, I like to just have one object because I would normally have dozens, hundreds of items in the games that I make, not just 2 or 3. So I don't think having hundreds of objects for that would be a good choice. So we have a player sprite, it's very simple, one image sprite. We have the item sprite, which is the most important thing of all in this tutorial. Every image is a different item, and we're going to be using the number of the image to determine what happens. We're going to have an array where there's going to be a script called for every item when we press the use button. For items like the health potion, the script is going to add HP to a stat. For the key and the sword, we're going to make the hero equip it, so you can see it. This just showing you really how numbers can be used to draw things as well as make different things happen depending on the actual item. And it's a really useful way to organize things and to minimize the amount of code and copy paste that you have to do. We only have one object for items, and you can see in the room that every object looks like a key, but in the game it doesn't. That's because in the create event of the item objects, I'm just setting the image speed to 0 so it doesn't cycle through, but here we're setting the item to a random item. That's how it's working there. This of course makes all the items random. If you wanted to have a specific placement specific item in a room, you just go into the creation code and say image index equals 1 or eItems .sword. This is why using enumerators is better. I know we haven't done any code yet, but I'm just showing you how after you've done the tutorial, how easy it is to kind of say, okay, this item is going to be a sword, or it could be a potion, or it could be a key, like that. And then it'll know what sprite to draw, and just by using the image index, we know what to do with it. Going back to the sprites, so we have a tile sprite just for the background, and this sprite here is just so the player knows which item in his GUI in the top left is currently selected. Okay, so I'm just going to build the tutorial with you guys as we go. So all we have right now is an object item. In the create event, we're going to tell it to be a random item here and set its image speed to 0, like this, and then obviously give it the correct sprite, and then with the player in the create event, there's nothing in a step. I just have some movement code, very basic movement code, and then inside our room, on the player layer, we're going to put the player here, and then with the items, just place them wherever you like. like this. And now if we run the game, you can see we have a couple of items of different types. Nothing happens when the player moves over them because we haven't coded anything. And that's it. We can move on with the next thing now. Okay, so we're going to have the player pick up items now. So in the create event, we're going to create the inventory, which is just a DS list. If you don't know what a list is, but you know what a 1D array is, it's kind of similar, except you can add and remove entries from the list, and it changes in size, as well as lots of other neat things as well. I'm using a list because right now I don't know how many items the player is going to have, and I'm just happy to have the list expand and contract every time we add or take away an item. Then in the step event of the player, we've got a new region called pick up an item. This is just this stuff here. So all we're going to do is check for the existence of an item on the player's XY. Instance place is going to return an instance ID or no one. So if item is not equal to no one, that means that something is there. We're going to have a little message to say, okay, we've picked an item up. And we're going to add to our inventory list the image index of whatever item it is. So for example, if we're picking up a key, we can see in this sprite, key is the first image. So we're going to be adding a 0 to our inventory list. If we're picking up a sword, we're going to be adding a 1 to our list. If we're picking up a potion, we're going to be adding a 2 to our list. And then because we've picked up the item, we no longer need it, so we can just destroy it. So let's run the game and test this now. So you can see where the items are disappearing. We're not displaying anything, so that's why you can't see anything. But in our show debug area here in the output, we can see we're picking up items. So this block of code is working. So now would be a good time for us to display the inventory. So we're going to have a new event called the draw GUI. The draw GUI is almost always the place where you want to draw things like inventory, hit points, anything that you want to have on the screen in the same place, regardless of where you are in the room. Draw GUI is the best place. So we've got a region called draw collected items. All we're going to do is we're going to use a for loop, which is this line here. Zoom in a bit. And all we're saying here is for as big as the inventory is, do this that many times. So if the size of the inventory is 2, then this code is going to run 2 times. And then inside the for loop, the first thing we want to do is, okay, so what item is actually stored in this spot in the inventory? So if we first picked up a key, then we would have added a 0 to global inventory. So the first spot in the inventory would equal a 0. If the second item we picked up was also a key, then the second entry would equal a 0 as well. And the number like 0, 1 or 2 is basically the image index of SBR items. So we're just using the same number over and over and over again. So we want to work out the drawing coordinates. I've done this just in case you have your sprites centered in a different way to me. Mine are centered in the middle center. And draw X, draw Y are just going to be the X and Y coordinates that we're going to draw on the screen. So all this stuff is just working out the draw coordinates. we want the items to always be on the same y coordinate. So this isn't going to change inside the loop, but draw X, we want the items to be drawn in a row. So for whatever entry equals, we're going to be adding X offset plus sprite width, or timesing sprite width to by entry and adding X offset to it. That's going to give us a nice horizontal row. You'll see that in a minute. And then finally, we want to draw our sprite like this. Why are we checking if it's undefined? Because for whatever reason, maybe some kind of bug or mistake, and if we're trying to access a place in the list that doesn't exist, or something isn't there, it's going to return undefined. So this hopefully will stop any crashes you may have. So let's run the game. Let's test this out now. So let's walk over a sword. You can see in the top left, it's suddenly displaying a sword. Let's go over a health potion. And now we've got a health potion. Let's go with another potion and a key. So now we have 4 items. How does it know what items to display? Because it's the numbers, basically. Let me just add something else now. Okay, so in this block of code here, where we are checking to see if the item is not undefined, after we draw the sprite, we're going to put this code here. This is going to display the number that's stored in the inventory. So let's run the game again, and let's pick up some items. You can see whatever item we pick up, the number is basically what image index the item is in the sprite. So the keys are always 0, the swords are always 1, and the potions are always 2, which matches up perfectly with our sprite here. So keys are 0, swords are 1, potions are 2. The next thing I want to add is I only want the player to have 1 of each item. You may or may not want to add this. So if you do want to add this, then in the step event, after we have an item that isn't equal to no one, so basically when we're over an item, rather than picking it up straight away, we want to see if we already have this item inside the inventory. If we don't, then the slist find index is going to return -1. If we do have this item in the inventory, then it's going to equal 0 or higher. So if this is -1, then give us the item, and don't forget the curly bracket there. So just run the game again if you want to do this bit, and I'll show you what happens now. So now I'm walking over all these items, and I have 1 of each now, so I can no longer pick up any more items. Okay, so the next thing that we need to do is have the ability to select different items. That's going to allow us to drop them, use them, that kind of thing. So in the create event of the player, we're going to have a new variable called selected item. This should be no lower than 0 and no higher than the size of the inventory, -1. In the step event, we have a new region called select an item. All we're doing is if we press left on the keyboard, I have WASD for movement, so just bear that in mind. If we press left on the keyboard, if select item -1 is greater than or equal to 0, then we're going to remove 1 from selected item. Otherwise, we're going to wrap it around, and selected item is going to be the size of our inventory list -1. If we press right, then if selected item +1 is less than the size of the inventory, then we're going to increase selected item by 1. Otherwise, we're going to wrap it around and make it 0. So that's all we're doing. And we also want to have a visual display of this. So in the draw GUI, right at the bottom, let me just minimize this stuff here. So zoom out maybe. So we're still within the for loop here, but right before the for loop closes with a curly bracket, we're going to have a check. We're going to say if selected item equals entry, then we're going to draw our selected item sprite. What this is, selected item is going to be a number between 0 and however big the inventory is. This for loop is going to go through every entry of the inventory every step. So at some point in this for loop, we want to draw the sprite to say, okay, this is the selected item. And how are we going to know that is when selected item is equal to the entry. So for example, if selected item equals 1, then when this for loop runs, entry is going to start off at 0. All this is going to run. This is going to prove to be false. So this isn't going to happen. Then entry is going to become 1. All this is going to run. Then this is going to be true. And this is going to run. And then say we have 3 items. Entry is going to run one more time. All this is going to run. This is going to be false. This is not going to happen. So basically, wherever we are in the inventory, whatever number selected item equals, that's how we're going to know when to draw our sprite. So let's run the game. See this happening now. So I'm going to pick up some items, get a key, and then if I press left and right, you can see the box changes. When the game first runs, because selected item equals 0, then it should be displaying on the first entry, because entry equals 0 is the one on the left. And if we leave the box there, that means selected item equals 1. If we move it there, it means selected item equals 2. So selected item is nothing to do with the contents of the list. It's simply what entry in the list are we up to. So that's all it's for. Okay, so again, in the step event of the player, we're going to have a new region called dropping the item. What we're going to do is whenever we press the backspace key, make this a bit bigger. So whenever we press backspace, we're going to check to see what item is stored in our inventory at our selected item position. This is because we're going to create a new item and the image index is going to be whatever this equals. So as long as it's not undefined again, then we're going to make a new instance of obj item on the player's coordinates, and we're going to store the ID of this new instance within a variable called dropped item, and then we're going to simply override the random thing that happens in the create event of this object, which is setting. I'll show you. So what happens is when we create that item, this is going to run, but we don't want a random item. We want the image index of our new item to equal this. So that's what this line is doing. Then we're going to remove the item from the player's inventory, but this happens a couple of times throughout our game, so we're going to make this into a script. It's a really easy, simple script. Before we go into that, just have this message as well. So it'll say item dropped in the output around here, just so we know the code's running. So inside the script itself, so all we're doing is we are removing whatever entry is stored in global inventory at selected item. And then because, for example, we might have had the last entry selected, we just need to make sure selected item is never above or equal to the size of the inventory. and also that selected item is not greater, and also that selected item is greater than 0. If both these conditions are true, then we're going to remove one from selected item, like so. So there's still, it's not going to work properly because we have to do one more thing, but I want to show you what happens if we don't do this one thing first. So let's get a sword. If you press backspace, you can see for one frame the sword appears under the player's feet, and then we just pick it up again. That's because the code where the player is checking for collision with an item is still running every step, and we're not overriding it with anything. So as soon as we drop it, it gets picked up again. So we're going to tackle that next. Okay, so we are going to have a boolean for every item, and it's going to basically say, okay, can this item be picked up? It's going to start off at no, it cannot be picked up, and then every step, if the item cannot be picked up, it's going to check to see if there's a collision with the player. If there's no collision with the player, then it's going to say, okay, yes, I can now be picked up, and that's going to stop the effect that you just saw earlier. So inside the create event of obj item, we're going to have a new variable called can be picked up. This is the variable I've just been talking about, and we're going to initialize it as false. Then in the step event, a new event, again, like I said, for every step that can be picked up equals false, we're going to check for a collision with the player. If there is no player colliding with the item, then we're going to set can be picked up to true, like that. And then that's it. The item can be picked up. We have to modify the player object as well. But first of all, just create a draw event, and we're going to say draw self, and we're also going to display what can be picked up equals, so we can see this happening as well with a visual display of the numbers. And in the step of the player in pick up an item, so all we need to do is on line 16, we just had if item is not equal to no one. We also say we also want to say and item can be picked up is true. So as long as both this and this is true, then run the rest of this code. So now, if we run the game, okay, so as you can see, all of our items are okay to be picked up because they're displaying a 1. If I move over a potion, I've picked it up. If I now drop it, you can see that it's displaying a 0. So no, we can't pick it up, and that's why we can move around and not pick it up. As soon as I move away from it, it turns to a 1, and now I can pick it up. So that's how we can have this happening. You can drop items, pick them up, and it works quite well. Okay, so probably the biggest part of the tutorial now is making items do different things when we use them. So we're going to have a couple of scripts. Some items will share the same script. So, for example, the sword and the key, we're going to have them equipped when we use them. And with the health potion, we're going to increase a new variable called global.playerHP by 1 every time we use one. So let's make the scripts first. We only have 2. We have scr equip item. Get rid of this. So this is going to be a new variable. We can just use it for now. So what we're going to do is whenever we use the key or sword, we're going to run this script. If we already have something equipped, then we're going to add that back to our inventory so we don't lose it. And then we're going to set our equipped item as whatever item we just used it on. Or sorry, whatever item we just used. And then we're going to remove this item that we just used from our inventory. So what you'll see is whatever, if there was something stored in the player's hands, that will go back into the player's inventory on the top left, and whatever item we used in the top left will disappear and be shown in the player's hand. That's what the script does. It doesn't do anything other than that. It's just to show you how using numbers we can make different things happen based on the item. And the other script is SCR heal. So like I said, all we're doing is adding 1 to the player's HP. And again, when we use the potion, we're going to remove it from our inventory. So we're using our SCR remove item script again. In the create event of the player, this is probably where most of the stuff is. Let me zoom out a little bit. So all this stuff is new. I'm going to go through it now. So global.player HP 10. We're just going to use this to display the player's HP as we use potions to add to it. I've already explained what global.equipped item is. We're going to initialize it as -1, and we're only going to draw something if it's greater than or equal to 0, and whatever it equals, that's the image index we're going to draw. So if it equals 1, then we're going to draw a sword, because 0, 1. If equipped item equals 0, we're going to draw a key. Okay, so show inventory, we're not going to use it just now, but it's just so we can show or hide the inventory at will. Then inside this region here, so what happens when we use an item? We're going to have what's called an enumerator. Again, it's just numbers. It just makes the code more readable, and it allows you to do the things that I showed you earlier, where you can say, okay, this item is going to be a key or a sword. If, for example, eitems.key is the same as typing 0. That's the same thing. It's just more readable, like this. Okay, so then what we want to do is, for every item we have, we want to store a script that we want to run. And whenever you want to store a script, it's the same as running it, but you don't have the parentheses like this. And actually, GameMaker stores scripts as numbers. So that's why I've typed here SCR equip item is a number, SCR heal is a number. And all we're going to do is, when the player presses a certain key, we're going to run one of these scripts. How do we know what script to run? Well, we're going to reference this array on use. Say, for example, the item is a 1, which is sword. We're going to run this script. If it's a 2, potion, run this script. If it's a 0, key, run this script. This for loop, you don't need it. It's just so I can show you that all these scripts are numbers as well. So I'm just going to run the game so I can show you that in the output. As you can see right here, we have 3 numbers. So 1000005 is how GameMaker references this script, and you can see we have the script twice, and it's the same number twice, and the second script is a different number. And so all we're doing is, when we're using one of these entries, is just calling one of these numbers. So you could just type the number if you knew the number of the script, but because we don't, we're going to do this instead. So now we're going to the step event of the player. We're going to have a new region, use or equip an item. When we press space, again, we're going to check what item, what number is stored inside global inventory at the position of selected item. Then we're going to run, as long as it's not -1, then run our script, and either SCR heal or equip item will run. We need to do a couple more things. We need to display our player HP and also display an equipped item if we have one. So we're going to make a new event, the draw event, and we have to say draw self to make the game draw our player. There we go, it's better. And then all we're going to do is say if global equipped item is not -1, then draw our item sprite with the index of whatever equipped item equals, and then at these coordinates like so. And then in the draw GUI region, we can do this right underneath here, which is going to say draw text HP, a string of global.player HP, like that. So now I think we should have everything we need to see this in action. Let's run the game. So in the top left we have the player's HP, no items equipped. So if I pick up a potion and a sword and a key, if I move over to the sword and press space, then you can see we lose the sword from our inventory, but we show the player equipping it. If I press space on the key, then we're basically swapping the key for the sword. So the key disappears from the inventory and the sword goes back into it, and the player is shown equipping the key. If we move over to the potion and press space, well, now we've added one to our HP. Let's get another potion, another one. Let's drop our swords, get another key. So there you go. So there's one last thing that we want to do. We're going to make use of the show inventory variable. So inside the player step event, we're going to say if the player presses I, we're going to change show inventory. So if show inventory is true, it's going to become false, and if it's false, it's going to become true. This is like a really useful way to toggle things like that, to toggle booleans. And then the last thing to make that actually work is in the draw GUI area or region. Just at the start of the region, we're going to put this line. So if show inventory equals true, like this. And then just here is the perfect place to put the closing curly bracket, like that. This is not new. This is not new. This is new. So all we're doing is saying if show inventory is true, then yes, show the inventory. Otherwise, don't, basically. So let's run the game. We press I. Well, let's get some items first. If we press I, they're there. Again, they're gone. That easy. I think that pretty much covers it. Thank you to all of the patrons who have suggested and voted for this topic. You too can become a patron. The link is in the description below. Apart from that, thank you for watching, and I will catch you next time. Bye for now.